Success in the global music industry is often viewed as a mix of marketing strategies, viral trends, and talents. For Blackpink, calculated hiatus, yet unmatched exclusivity. And global dominance. 4 autonomous empires. One untouchable throne. A guaranteed result. This is the breakdown of a system where Blackpink winning was the only possible outcome. The foundation of this empire was laid in 2012 when YG Entertainment launched the Who's That Girl teaser series. A mystery girl campaign that turned the members into viral sensations years before they ever hit a stage. By delaying their debut for nearly 4 years after those initial teasers, YG turned the group into a myth. This controlled exposure ensured that by the time they arrived, their visual identity was already locked into a high-end aesthetic. They were never positioned as friends, but as icons to be emulated. A consequence of a rigorous training system that prioritized star power over relatability. The brand was fully engineered before the music existed, making their eventual entry into the market a strategic strike rather than a soft launch. The myth finally became reality on the 8th of August 2016 with the dual release of BOOMBAYAH and WHISTLE. This debut acted as a calculated showcase of aggression and restraint. BOOMBAYAH delivered the industrial black energy, utilizing a high-octane EDM trap structure with a tribal chant hook that felt like a stadium war cry.
Hey boy.
In contrast, WHISTLE was an exercise in sonic minimalism. It relied on a sparse 808 bass line and a rhythmic clicking woodblock, leaving immense space for the members' vocals, specifically Rosé's indie pop vocal texture and Jennie's chic rap. The impact was immediate and historic. WHISTLE achieved a perfect all-kill on South Korean charts, making them the fastest girl group to do so at that time. Globally, BOOMBAYAH hit #1 on the Billboard World Digital Songs chart within days. This era established their anti-volume positioning. They didn't need a 12-track album to make a point. They proved that a Teddy Park production, often defined by a sudden empty drop chorus, stayed in the mind longer than a wall of sound. Impact was now the priority over total output, ensuring that every note they played carried the weight of an event. Following their debut, the group moved into a phase that rewarded the business over the listener. Instead of a full-length follow-up, November 2016 saw the release of Square 2, featuring Playing with Fire and Stay. Playing with Fire utilized a pulsating tropical house piano riff that complemented the members' lower registers, while the lyrics spoke to a more mature, dangerous romance. Meanwhile, Stay featured an acoustic folk pop arrangement with a harmonica lead, highlighting Rosé and Jisoo's ability to carry an emotional ballad with a raw, unplugged vulnerability. Despite these successes, the real story remained the massive gaps between releases. Demand was being manufactured through deliberate absence. While other groups were on a constant cycle of variety show appearances, Blackpink remained elusive. This scarcity stress-tested the fandom's loyalty and found it only grew stronger with every month of silence. By mid-2017, the anticipation for their next move had reached a fever pitch. The rarity of their content made every minute of music feel like a luxury product, a limited edition release. This strategy transformed the Blinks, their fandom, from casual listeners into a highly mobilized global force. The silence was broken on the 22nd of June 2017 with As If It's Your Last. track that served as a bright, pop-forward pivot. Musically, it departed from their heavier hip-hop roots, leaning into 1980s synth-pop and disco house influences. Lisa's English rap verse, delivered with her signature rhythmic swagger and sharp enunciation, helped the track transition from a domestic hit to a global club anthem. It was a calculated experiment to see if the brand could lean into pink pop without losing its black edge. The experiment broke YouTube records and cleared the path for their expansion into the Japanese market. They marked this entry with a debut showcase at the Nippon Budokan for 14,000 fans, a massive scale for a group with only 5 songs. They proved their aesthetic was strong enough to survive a tonal shift. Even when the music sounded lighter, the high-fashion styling remained unattainable. They never changed who they were to fit the pop mold. They simply applied their design-to-win filter to a different genre, solidifying their status as the industry's most versatile chameleons. By 2018, Blackpink had evolved beyond a K-pop phenomenon into a global prototype. The identity lock-in phase involved aligning their production and styling with Western luxury standards. This was the year each member began their ascent into the high-fashion world as individual faces for Chanel, Dior, Saint Laurent, and Celine. A strategic combination between the group's aesthetic and the world's most storied fashion houses. Sonically, Teddy Park was refining the Blackpink sound, with a mixture of trap hi-hats, Middle Eastern-inspired melodies, and brassy anthemic choruses. This shift ensured the group was positioned beyond domestic music cycles. By the time they prepared for their next comeback, they had transitioned from idols to icons. Every outfit was curated to be editorial, and every song was structured to work in a Los Angeles club as effectively as it did in a Seoul arena. The group was now global ready, waiting for the single spark that would ignite their worldwide dominance. They had successfully built a bridge between the East and the West. The spark arrived on the 15th of June, 2018, with DU DU DU. The song crystallized a winning formula, an aggressive trap pop beat and a massive, empty drop where the members chant the title alongside finger gun choreography. It became the most viewed K-pop music video in 24 hours at the time of its release. But what happens next completely flips the game. Instead of pivoting to something new, they released Kill This Love in 2019. Which replicated the same structural formula but amplified the intensity. Kill This Love replaced the trap flutes with Braveheart-style horns and heavy marching band drums. While some critics argued the structure was repetitive, this was a masterclass in sonic branding. Like Apple's ringtone or Intel's chime, a Blackpink song now had a recognizable industrial design. Kill This Love became a global anthem, validating the idea that they didn't need to reinvent the wheel. They just needed to make the wheel bigger, louder, and more expensive. Each comeback had become a billion-dollar brand activation. With the formula validated, the group executed a Western bypass. In April 2019, they became the first K-pop girl group to perform at Coachella, a strategic placement designed to distance them from the idol label. By performing at a festival known for alternative credibility and celebrity attendance, they bypassed the bubblegum stigma often attached to the genre, marketing themselves to the global fashion and music elite. Their US media run followed, focusing on late-night shows and high-fashion magazines. Cultural placement was now prioritized over chart flooding. Coachella 2019 remains one of the most significant turning points in K-pop history, proving that a group could conquer the West by remaining unapologetically themselves. They didn't record English versions of their hits to fit in. Instead, they forced the general public to sing in Korean. The global positioning was complete, and the brand was now perceived as a peer to the biggest names in American pop. After the Coachella high, the group disappeared again. For over a year, there was no new music. This was the era of silence as leverage. While fans trended hashtags demanding music, the members were more visible than ever in the fashion world, attending front rows in Paris and appearing in global ad campaigns. In most industries, absence leads to irrelevance. For Blackpink, it led to a supply and demand crisis. The less music they released, the more valuable the eventual release became. This was the ultimate psychological play, making the audience crave the product through starvation. This period was the ultimate proof of their business model. They were maintaining a multi-billion-dollar brand value through Instagram posts and Fashion Week appearances alone. They proved that their value wasn't tied to the music they made, but to the people they were. When How You Like That was finally announced in mid-2020, the anticipation was so high that it shattered 5 Guinness World Records. The video set records for the most viewed YouTube video, music video, and K-pop video in 24 hours, plus the most viewers for a video and music video premiere. Blackpink existence was the marketing, and the music was simply the payoff for the fans' patience. October 2020 marked the arrival of the album. After 4 years, the group finally released a full-length project. It was a maximum impact release timing, featuring global collaborators like Selena Gomez on the Sugary Ice Cream and Cardi B on the playful Bet You Wanna. Tracks like Lovesick Girls showed a more emotive, guitar-driven side that appealed to a broader pop-rock demographic, while Pretty Savage reinforced their Black identity with a heavy kick and a bratty, confident vocal delivery. The album sold over 1 million copies, making Blackpink the first K-pop girl group to do so. Volume arrived only when their leverage was at its absolute peak. This era was also the phase where individual scale began to rival the group. Jisoo solidified her position as the face of Dior, while Jennie, Rosé, and Lisa were now global brands in their own right, with solo releases like Solo, R, and Lalisa keeping the Blackpink name in the headlines every single day. This proved that individual scale could exist without weakening the group structure. They were no longer just 4 members of a group. They were 4 CEOs of their own personal brands, working together in a high-powered alliance that made the collective indestructible. The starvation strategy reached its most extreme point between 2020 and 2022. For nearly 2 years, the group remained quiet as a unit while the members achieved individual peaks. When Born Pink was released in September 2022, the world watched to see if the gap had finally been too long. It hadn't. Pink Venom utilized a traditional Geomungo intro blended with a 90s hip-hop beat, bridging the gap between Korean heritage and modern trap. Meanwhile, Shutdown sampled Paganini's La Campanella, creating a sophisticated trap classical hybrid that felt like a victory lap. The album became the first by a K-pop girl group to reach #1 on the Billboard 200, a milestone that cemented their global dominance. This era confirmed that absence did not erode demand but amplified it. They had trained their audience to wait, turning every comeback into a global holiday. The music video for Shutdown was a meta-commentary on their own career, featuring sets that referenced their past hits, competing with their own shadow. And in doing so, they elevated the entire genre to new heights of prestige. The final validation of the business model wasn't found on a chart, but in a stadium. The Born Pink World Tour became the highest-grossing tour by a female group in history, earning over $260 million. They were selling out stadiums in North America, Europe, and Asia, with a discography of roughly 30 songs. This was the physical proof of their structural success. While other groups needed 100 songs to fill a set list, Blackpink's hits were so culturally dense they could sustain a 2-hour show on pure branding and energy. Physical attendance validates engineered dominance. You can fake streaming numbers, but you cannot fake 60,000 people in a stadium. The tour proved that the scarcity model was a sustainable way to build a legacy. Fans were attending a brand activation for the most successful female group on the planet. The machine was now running at 100% efficiency, with every city they visited turning pink in their wake. This was the moment the project moved from a success to a dynasty. As of early 2026, the final stage of the design has been reached. The members have achieved total individual autonomy without dissolving the group, a feat once considered impossible in K-pop. By establishing their own labels, Jennie's Odd Atelier, Lisa's Loud, Jisoo's Blizoo, and Rosé's partnership with Atlantic, they have taken 100% control of their personal brand equity. They are four autonomous global entities operating within one intact group brand. They return to Blackpink for the massive scale of a world tour, but they live their daily lives as independent moguls. This answers the thesis of how Blackpink's success was designed. Every hiatus, every fashion deal, and every Teddy Park drop was a brick in a fortress that is now unassailable. They changed the definition of what a K-pop idol could be, moving the goalposts from singer to global asset. Whether they release a song next month or 3 years from now, the result is guaranteed because they have built a brand that exists independent of music. They have built a win-only system where the only thing more powerful than their presence is their absence. The prophecy of their dual existence model had been fulfilled, and all four members had arrived at their absolute peak. This convergence birthed the Deadline World Tour, a global takeover spanning 22 countries and drawing a staggering 2.4 million attendees, cementing it as the highest-grossing tour by a female group in history. And their latest comeback era with their third mini-album. The title itself is a masterstroke in psychological marketing. It implies a sense of urgency, an exclusive window of time where these four autonomous moguls share the same stage before returning to their individual empires. The Deadline era proves that their solo endeavors fortified the Blackpink brand. The machine has achieved a level of synergy that makes every comeback a monumental, can't-miss cultural deadline. Success is rarely inevitable, but it can be studied and engineered. Blackpink is the living proof that in a world of constant noise, silence is the loudest weapon. They didn't win by playing the game better. They won by changing the rules. They proved that a group doesn't need to be relatable to be loved, and they don't need to be constant to be remembered. They are the architectural standard for the modern icon. As they move forward into this new era of independence, the question isn't whether they will succeed, but how much larger the empire can grow. The design is complete, and the win is guaranteed. Blackpink dared to be bold. Will you?
지금까지 제니, 리사, 로제, 지수, 블랙핑크였습니다. 감사합니다.